how do we look at the spiral dynamics model and use that to help ourselves grow up this model. So I am much more focused on our own thoughts and our own mind, and how as we change those, the outer world will also change. And as I've been studying the work from the mentor that I've been working with for 4 years, Amelia Harshfield, and now teaching to other clients, is that you can actually stop relationship conflict as you understand where you are on the drama triangle, which I'll explain the model here, and then also within spiral dynamics. And I can tell how they'll relate to each other. So we'll do a quick introduction, talk about how the drama triangle by Dr. Stephen Karpman relates to spiral dynamics, and then what is the drama triangle, and we'll dive into that. And this is going to be a quick overview. The trauma triangle can get quite deep, and so this is just going to be a dip into this deep pool that we are that can get there with the drama triangle. So who am I? I am someone who's fascinated in growing myself and becoming less emotionally triggered by things and other people. So I am all about self-development and using that to grow myself, become kinder to others and myself. And along my path, I got the opportunity to become a mentor, a fully qualified integration mentor through the Sumiloff Academy of Human Integration. And now I get to teach this to clients, so I can help clients see where they are on the spiral dynamics levels, where they are within the drama triangle with their relationships, and how they can get out of the conflict and move into a more harmonious space with relationships, and then also with themselves. Just a reminder for everyone, spiral dynamics is situational. So what are these thoughts that people will say, or so where are people at on the spiral when they say things like critical things to their spouse, if they're angry at their spouse and they're yelling at them? And, where are they with they're too afraid to leave their partner? Or they feel like there are no options with their relationship, or they chronically say yes to their own detriment. And all of these are problems that can be solved within the drama triangle, looking at the spiral dynamics levels. So how do these models relate before we dive in? Some people, you might look at some of these roles and say, oh, this is clearly the persecutor role is clearly Graves level 3. And some people make blanket assumptions about how these 3 roles relate to the drama triangle. I'm sorry, how the 3 roles on the drama triangle relate to spiral dynamics. However, there are, each of the 8 levels within the spiral have their own drama triangle within them. So that means as you get comfortable within the drama triangle level that you're on, in the level that you are in spiral dynamics, you can bump up to the next level and start to learn what that's about and what that looks like in the relationships. And the drama triangle is super important when it comes to relationships. So any conflict that you're having can be with someone else, can likely be traced back to the drama triangle. So it's a really nice way to tell what was going on and then how to get out of it as well, which is also important. So you can actually stop relationship conflict and getting in these loops that people move in or stay stuck in their relationships by getting yourself more and more and more off the drama triangle. And as you do that, you'll bump up to the next spiral dynamics level. And you'll never be completely off the drama triangle. There's always something else, because we all have blind spots. We all have things that we can't see within ourselves. And that's just part of being a human. But the more you can get off being in the drama triangle, the more complex your relationship will be, and the healthier your relationships will be. So let's talk about the drama triangle. It was created by Dr. Stephen Karpman, and his main finding with this is when people have conflict, they play out a role on the drama triangle, whether they're aware of this or not. So sometimes people may be in these roles and be very conscious of it, and sometimes they may be in these roles and be very unconscious of it. And really the first level of change is to move from like being completely unaware that you're in these roles to being more conscious about it and be like, okay, here I am playing the rescuer, here I am playing the persecutor, here I am playing the victim. Or, oh, this person's playing the victim, and then look at me go into the rescuer mode to try to save them or make them feel more comfortable. So people have a main role that they will find themselves in. So if you're listening to these three roles as I explain more, you might hear yourself being like, oh, I really resonate with the victim. And maybe I can see myself in the rescuer and the persecutor a little bit more as in just different situations. Or you might be like, I'm primarily a rescuer, and like, look at me doing this, but when I get upset, I turn into the persecutor. So people will have a main role that they likely are in, and then we'll kind of turn into these other two roles depending on the situation. So that's just something to keep in mind as we go through this. And even if you don't see yourself in one of these roles, it can be really important just to be like, I don't see myself in this role, and I'm just going to stay open to it. And this might give you the ability to start noticing where you see these roles in your life. Because as I said, the first part of changing it is recognizing when you're doing it. And you might see other people playing these roles as well in your life. So just stay open to it. Even if you're like, I don't know about this, this sounds like a model that doesn't make sense or it's not useful, and that's completely valid as well. And just staying open to, could this be true, can be really helpful and draw things out of that subconscious. So the victim feels like life is against them and they are hopeless. They might say things like, I have no choice here. I don't feel like I have any options. I have no power in the situation. I was talking to a client yesterday, and his fiance is sounding like she's in that role because his relationship with his son is affecting her, but she doesn't have a lot of power over that. So she can feel like she has no options. She can feel like there's nothing that she can do with this, and then start to feel quite hopeless. And you can get into a really dark space with this victim mentality. They have a deep fear of being exposed as incapable. So they will build these walls of playing the victim, so people don't see them and expose them as being incapable. So they won't accept help, because it's like, that will expose how I am incapable. So it can keep them trapped in this 22 of having the fear, but also not being able to step forward with it. So there's like a loop that they can keep themselves in here. And all three roles actually need each other. They depend on each other. They depend on the conflict and the drama to keep themselves playing out these roles, because sometimes people learned throughout their childhood maybe that they feel safe in this role. And when people are like hooked on drama, it's like they kind of need the drama to feel safe. So it's like the victim needs to be victimized to feel safe. And they do that by meeting that persecutor, and the persecutor is the part that can be quite critical. So the victim needs the persecutor to say things like, to make them feel victimized, and then the rescuer will also make them feel victimized by offering help to them without them wanting the help or asking for the help. And if the victim is in a life situation that they feel like there are no options with their relationship, or they feel like there are no options with their or life is pointless, they can get into a pretty dark, depressed state here. So that is one consequence of being in this victim mentality too long. It's something that can happen. It doesn't happen to everyone. It doesn't happen to all situations, but that is something that can happen. And the main lesson for the victim is to look for the options that are out there, and remember that there are always solutions if you can see them. And part of it is just starting to understand there are options out there rather than feeling like there are no options. So that's the main lesson of that victim. The rescuer, they need to give in order to feel loved. So this is kind of like the dark side of the mother, and it's not all mothers do this, but it can be the dark side of the mother. They can get stuck in a cycle of overhelping while not receiving help. So something that so if they learn this as a child, they need to give in order to be and feel loved. They can get stuck in this giving and giving and giving cycle, but they're so used to giving, and it's like they just need to give in order to feel loved. They might not be able to see other people helping them when they actually are helping. So it's like they can't even see it because they're so focused on rescuing people, because that is the way that they get their needs met. And they can get stuck in feeling resentful of relationships and feel like they're not getting the not in a reciprocal relationship. So that can be really important for the rescuer to understand. They need the victim because they need someone to save. Their modus of operandi is helping, whether the person wants it or not. So they need the victim because they need someone to save. And they need the persecutor by creating the victim. So that's how the rescuer kind of needs these other two roles and how they can create drama within them. And the main lesson of the rescuer is to learn to prioritize your needs. So part of the rescuer is that they believe like if they help, they'll finally be seen. But they need to realize that other people don't know their needs. Other people aren't aware of what they need, and only they know. Like if they're off, if they like need a break, if they need to go nap for a long time, do they need to unplug? They are the only ones who need that, and without them sharing that, other people aren't going to know. And then the other part is sharing it and then actually prioritizing it rather than saying it and then not doing anything about it. So it's kind of like a two-step process there. So that is the main thing for the rescuers. A lot of females are in this. It's not 100% females. Certainly men can do this, but a lot of females can fall into this role pretty easily, especially if they learn that as a child. And it's just the process of learning your needs and prioritizing your needs to help you get out of this. Because as you start to focus and focus and understand your needs in the relationship will balance out. So it's like you have to pull back, which might be uncomfortable. But sometimes you have to pull back and set boundaries in order for other people to step their game up and actually be able to give the help that the rescuer is wanting to receive. So that is the rescuer. For the persecutor protects their fragile ego by putting others down. So they have a deep sense of shame around not being good enough. So they protect this sense of shame by creating, it's like their defense for that, and not being that, their defense for that and not having that be exposed to other people is like, I'm just going to constantly put others down, so people don't have the chance to see how I'm feeling inside. So this is how they protect themselves. And once again, people might be doing this consciously, so they might be aware of it, or they might be doing it unconsciously where they're not aware of this. So so it's sometimes just being aware of, okay, what am I doing? How am I putting people down? And then how can I stop doing that? And what's going on for me with this? Do I have thoughts around not being good enough with this, or could it be something else? The persecutor needs the victim because the persecutor needs to persecute. So it needs to put people down. So it needs to have a victim. And then it needs the rescuer because the rescuer can help lift the victim up, and then the persecutor can kind of put them down. So they can create the rescuer and the persecutor can kind of create this yo-yo of the victim with being tossed around. And the persecutor's main lesson is to learn to be accountable for what they bring to the table, which for the persecutor is something that they need to realize themselves. Other people can't tell them that because they're just going to put them down. So they will have to have a wake-up call, likely coming from within, or maybe somewhere else. That's not 100%. But being able to start being accountable for what they bring to the table. So it's like, okay, I'm in this relationship. Look what I'm doing, and how is it affecting this? And I have the power to change this as well. So it's like, let me bring the power back to myself. Let me look at how I am contributing to some of the relationship conflict, and then also, how can I stop this? Mindfulness is a great tool for someone who is a primary role and the persecutor. And something that can happen is so people can have a main role, and then within a relationship conflicts, they can also switch roles. So the rescuer might go from rescuing to getting fed up and turning to the persecutor, which is super common. As it's like, I'm helping, no one's seeing this. And then you get tired because you're giving from a space that you're empty, and then all of a sudden you blow up and turn into the persecutor. And how they can prevent doing less drama and conflict you will have, because you can actually move off the drama triangle. And so someone can come to you as a persecutor, and you can just be like, hey, I see where you're at. Sounds like you're having a hard time. Tell me more about this. Or if someone's trying to help you, like the rescuer, where someone's just trying to help because maybe they are unconsciously helping to get their needs met. like unsolicited advice is possibly an example of that for certain situations. It's like you don't have to make that mean something about yourself. You can just go, okay, that person was doing that and I can move on with my day. So you don't have to turn into the victim. You don't have to turn into the persecutor with that. You can just go like, okay, this is this person. So these roles are really quite fascinating as you look at what role you play in the drama triangle. And then there's some questions around, okay, when you get stressed, do you turn into another role? When you get when you're fed up with things, do you turn into another role? If you're feeling insecure, what role do you turn into? And this can be really freeing. It can free up so much drama from your life, because you're just stepping off of these roles that just need drama to be passed around. So that is the 3 roles. So in summary, the drama triangle and spiral dynamics are a great combination for upgrading relationship dynamics. So the drama triangle that on that purple level is going to look different than the drama triangle on the red level, because those levels in spiral dynamics are very different. And you could ask the question of, okay, well, how do I know where I'm at? Do I need to like take and like break down all these 8 levels? Do I need of the spiral dynamics and figure out what it looks like to have the drama triangle in them? And that is one possibility, absolutely. And that would create a lot of work. Or you could just listen to where you're at, write it down, and see if you can map it. Because if you listen, people will tell you where they're at with these things, if you can hear what they're saying, right? So if you're like, I need to go and map this all out, you actually don't have to. You can just learn to listen and pinpoint where you're at based on what was said, based on what you were saying, based on what the other person was saying. When did you get triggered? How did it make you, what did it make you turn into on the spiral dynamics, and move from there. So as you get off the spiral, or as you get off the you're able to move up more and more up that spiral, the levels of the spiral dynamics. So conflict can actually turn into can morph into something that's not a big deal. And it doesn't have to throw your day off. It doesn't have to make you melt. It doesn't have to make you feel emotionally wrecked for 3 days as you're trying to figure out what's going on. You can just come together and be like, hey, what's going on within us? Where was I at? Where were you at? Cool, let's move on. So main lessons once again, realize there are always options for the victim when they are feeling stuck, even if they can't see them right now. And it can be really hard. It can be really hard to understand that if you're feeling quite down, if you're feeling like there aren't options, but there always are. It's just finding them and understanding that there are and staying open to them. So if you know someone who's having a hard time right now, that can be really helpful for them to hear. It can give them hope. For the rescuer, remember to give when they're feeling full rather than feeling empty. So pulling back their desire to help people and make sure they're helping themselves first rather than helping others. And the persecutor needs to look for what they are contributing to the problem rather than only point the finger at other people. So I don't know where I'm at time-wise. We can break into the the breakout rooms, I was just going to ask people if you could write into the chat what your major takeaway was for today. Yeah, and Michael said, I see the drama triangle as really useful for horizontal growth versus the spiral vertical growth. Yeah, exactly. That's one thing that you can do with that, as it can be seen as a horizontal model for sure.
Hey, Mike, are you around?
Yep.
So are we gonna move into breakouts?
Yeah. Well, I think Amelia, I think you're finishing up some last words.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
You can also give us some questions too to take into the breakout groups if you like.
Cool. So major takeaway, what is your major role that you see, and where do you see yourselves in the other two roles, are really great questions to think about. And I can repeat those questions as well.
Great. Did you have anything else you wanted to say before we start moving into breakout groups?
Sure.
Could we paste these questions into the chat or into one of the documents, Mike?
Sure.
So thanks for having me join. I have a Facebook group that professionally as a mentor, my specialty is helping people become free of emotional abuse. And I have a Facebook group with that if you're interested in joining, or if you have a friend who's having a hard time or has suffered with emotional abuse. We kind of talk about these two models and some other models as well to help people continue to take a step forward.